Hello friends. Today we're going to discuss about ICMR guidelines with regard to application of artificial intelligence in biomedical and health research involving human participants. I am Dr. Suresh Badadmat, Professor of Psychiatry, working at National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. In this video, I'll be discussing about a very important topic, artificial intelligence application in biomedical and health research. Before we move into this, we need to know what is the role played by Indian Council of Medical Research and how the ethical guidelines have evolved. With regard to the research involving human participants, with regard to biomedical and health research, the first guideline was released by ICMR in 1980. The second edition came after 20 years, that is in 2000. However, in 2006, there was a significant changes were brought in, and the latest is 2017. This 2017 National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research involving human participants given by Indian Council of Medical Research, released in 2017, is an important guideline where any researcher, any doctors, healthcare researcher involving human participants need to follow these guidelines. However, this guideline did not talk about digital research or artificial intelligence. Hence, there was a lacune. Hence, in 2023, an important guideline was released. The title is Ethical Guidelines for Application of Artificial Intelligence in Biomedical Research and Healthcare. And of course, again, this was released by Indian Council of Medical Research. What was the objective? The objective of this important guideline is to ensure ethical conduct, address emerging ethical challenges in the field of artificial intelligence, and to provide a framework for ethical decision making in medical artificial intelligence during the development of AI, deployment, and adoption of AI-based solutions for providing care in human beings. Now, this guideline, ICMR guideline, who are the people it is applicable? These guidelines are intended to all the stakeholders involved in artificial intelligence and biomedical research and healthcare research involving human participants, such as AI creators, developers, healthcare researchers, engineers who are working as researchers, entrepreneurs, clinicians, ethics committee, hospitals, research institutions, any sponsors, and funding organization. That means this guideline cuts across not only healthcare, including digital, and also the sponsors and other important stakeholders. What is the content of this guideline? Here, this whole guideline is divided into 5 important chapters. The first one, it talks about ethical guidelines, that is ethical principles with regard how in artificial intelligence, if it is used, what are the checks and balances? What are the guiding principles for various stakeholders? Second chapter. Third one is an ethic review process, how the review should be done, governance of artificial intelligence use, and finally, the informed consent. These are the 5 important chapters in this guideline. Let's look into the content. The first one is Preamble. I'll be discussing about that. The scope, application of AI in healthcare. As I mentioned, section 1 talks about ethical principles. Section 2 talks about the guiding principle for stakeholders involved in development of AI. Third one is ethic review procedure. Fourth is informed consent. And finally, the governance. How this guideline was developed? This was developed with an extensive discussion with experts and various ethics experts also, involving the digital field, people involved in data security, various healthcare researchers, industry people were involved. This guideline is a living document. That means it is not that the document is done and it will be never be amended. No. As and when artificial intelligence evolves very rapidly based upon the evolution and how it is shaping our behavior and also the human contact, based upon that, this guideline also will be a living document and amended as and when required by the ICMR. Why was it needed? As you know, on one hand, we have healthcare industry, on the other, IT industry. Healthcare industry is highly regulated. There are at least 60 to 70 various laws need to be followed if you are running an hospital. On the other hand, if you are developing a artificial intelligence software or any IT or digital software, the number of legislations are very less, and invariably the regulations are also less. Now, we are discussing about using artificial intelligence for providing healthcare services. That means we need to regulate AI. And there is an unprecedented growth with regard to artificial intelligence in the past 1 decade. And invariably, the engineering researchers who are naive towards the healthcare research may do unethical practice without their knowledge. It may be data sharing, it may be posting various patients' photos, and various other unethical practices. Hence, they need to come on board in par with healthcare industry. Hence, this regulation, basically, this guideline became an important regulating factor for people involved in AI research. There is a foreword written by Dr. Rajiv Bahalla and also the preface written by Dr. Narendra Kumar Arora, the Executive Director of Incline Trust International, and the acknowledgements written by Dr. Vishnuvardhan Rao. Let's look into the preamble. The preamble talks about definition. Here, it defines AI as a system's ability to correct, interpret external data and to use those learnings to achieve specific goal and tasks through flexible adaptation. In simple word, this software what we are developing as an AI is an alternative to human brain. Unfortunately, it's just not the artificial intelligence. It has to provide healthcare services to the human being. Hence, there are no regulations at this point of time, no laws are there, and with regard to AI, at this point of time, there is no a comprehensive law across the world. Hence, there is a need of guidelines. AI and healthcare is now coming up with serious challenges, legal issues, social issues, cultural challenges. Healthcare researchers and professionals and industries are highly regulated, but on the other hand, IT industry is poorly regulated or very minimally regulated when compared to healthcare industry. This guideline released by ICMR is not going to curtail the artificial intelligence research. It is basically to provide a legal framework or a framework under which the researchers need to operate when they are employing on human subjects. And you need to understand it discusses about AI and how the deployment in health is occurring. Invariably, AI is used for wellness, screening of diseases, diagnosing, and also monitoring, treatment, collaboration, and also working with various medical devices. That means it is playing a huge role. There, we need to be very careful when we are deploying AI. Not only that, it is also playing a very crucial role in public health sphere. That means if you are able to give a good data with regard to a country like India of about various health problems, trends, AI will be able to give you the predictions, and the predictions may be accurate to some extent. You will be able to prevent certain diseases and the disasters. Now, AI has been used exclusively for mental health care also. There, one need to follow Mental Health Care Act of 2017, the confidentiality of the patient. It's not just a confidentiality, it is a rights now. And that means under Section 23 of Mental Health Care Act, right to confidentiality, if anybody violates that, they can be put behind bars. Further, AI also plays a crucial role in healthcare management system, that is with regard to medical records. Further, hospital management systems with regard to staff, beds availability, interdepartmental coordination. AI is going to make life easier with regard to administration. Now let's go into the section 1. That is ethical principle of AI with regard to biomedical research and healthcare industry. If you look at the ethics, classically under research or research which is done on human subjects has 4 important components. One is autonomy, that is respect for a person; beneficency, that is do good to the participants or the humans, subjects, or maybe the patients; do no harm, that is non-maleficency; and finally, distributive justice. These 4 important pillars of the ethics need to be followed in artificial intelligence. Hence, these medical ethics which are applied in artificial intelligence need to be adhered with spirit, with regard to dignity of the patients, rights of the patients, rights of the subject, safety and well-being of the community at large should be considered, along with what is the impact on the participant and family member. These 4 basic principles have been further expanded into 10 general principles which are guiding. Which are those 10 guiding principles? These are the various guiding principles. I'll be discussing each one of them. First one is autonomy. The whole crux of healthcare stands on autonomy. Hence, even in artificial intelligence, although artificial intelligence is an independent entity, but it should not undermine the autonomy of a patient or the human subject. It should not interfere in the patient's decision and it should not override the patient consent. Hence, there is an important concept which has been brought in here to make sure the artificial intelligence do not override the patient. A human in the loop has been brought in. What does it mean? The AI technologies gives room for human to oversight the functioning and performance of the AI system. That means if there is a AI system which is deployed to provide care, this can be utilized only if there is a human in the loop. That person who is human in the loop will give options to the patient and he will take consent from the patient or maybe the human subjects, and the AI will be used for either screening, diagnosing, or treatment. By chance, in this process, if the patient withdraws the consent, that will be honored and AI will not be able to play a role. That is called human in the loop. That means a healthcare person has to be there between the human subjects and the AI. Second important ethics principle, safety and risk minimization. The safety of the patient lies with all the stakeholders involved in the development and deployment of AI. That means you cannot say just the healthcare provider. The people who are coding, developing, creating an AI also make sure that the people are not harmed. The performance of the algorithm must be evaluated not only on one particular section of the population, it should be tested in various ethnic groups, age, group, social classes, and other relevant human characteristics. We should not leave behind the people who are at high risk, marginalized people, and people who have less voice. That means they also need to be involved and their data also need to be collected so that AI takes a complete picture rather than a skewed picture of doing testing on only few people. The ethics committee and other stakeholders must ensure that there is a favorable benefit risk assessment has to be done so that the patient or the human subjects get benefit. AI technologies are prone for cyber attack, hacking, you may call it as ethical hacking, and they may take various sensitive data and private information of human beings and the patients. Hence, AI technologies must adhere to the highest security standards and also regard to patient data. Post introduction of this AI, there should be phase 4 trial similar to drug trial so that we can know the impact of this AI on the public and also the impact on already who are utilizing the AI. And all those phase 4 trial unintended harms and also any injury caused need to be documented, and if there is a requirement, algorithm needs to be modified. Special care should be taken with regard to safety of people who are highly vulnerable. It can be children, it can be elderly population, people from poor socioeconomic status who are illiterate, from backward communities. You should not take advantage of them. Risk minimization is to be a continuous process, not just during the development or deployment. Even after deployment, the risk minimization should be carried out and also make sure the human subjects are not harmed. The third one is trustworthiness. AI should be lawful, ethical, transparent, reliable, and valid. All are important points. That means you can't just deploy an AI telling that it is going to benefit the human being. It should be lawful, it should be ethical, transparent, reliable, and valid. And whatever the decision made by the AI should be logically explainable, and the doctors should be able to take decision based on the evidence. And every effort should be made to minimize bias and discrimination. The simple reason being is, although you can say AI is a software, how can it do the bias and discrimination? Please remember, artificial intelligence is data driven. Whatever the data you are going to give, based upon that, it's going to give the results. If you give a wrong data, you will get a wrong AI. If you give a bad data, you are going to get a bad AI. That means if you are able to give the data which is completely representative of a population, you'll be able to implement that AI to the whole population. Hence, we need to be very careful to use AI technologies developed outside the country and applying for healthcare services in India will be a blunder. That means you need to do testing even in India. With regard to data privacy now, AI technology is known for vulnerability with regard to privacy and also data protection. All these need to be protected in all the stages of development, deployment, and also adoption. And data privacy must aim to prevent unauthorized access of the data, modification of the data which has been coded, loss of personal data, and misuse of data should be prevented. Once there is a misuse, there may be a stigma of certain people who have shared their data. They should not be discriminated. Blackmailing, using that data for advertisement, and all unethical marketing practices should be stopped, and data privacy should be kept at the highest topmost priority, my dear friends. Currently, in India, the data protection law is not there for this today. However, data protection bill at this point of day is pending in the Lok Sabha. Hope it will be passed. That means we have only IT Act, Information Technology Act of 2000. According to Section 43A, any corporate bodies possessing, dealing with, and handling sensitive personal data or information in computer resources owned, controlled, or operated by it would be liable to pay damages as compensation to be affected for a person if they are negligent in implementing and maintaining reasonable security practices and procedures to protect sensitive personal data or information. This is what the maximum protection we have at this point of time under IT Act of Section 43A. Further, with regard to data privacy and also security of health data, there were two important comprehensive legislation was placed in front of the Parliament. One was Disha Bill, that is called as Data Information Security and Healthcare Act, which was withdrawn later. It could not pass in the Parliament. Later, it was modified into Personal Data Protection Act, that is the bill which is pending in the Parliament. These are the two important legislation which were proposed, and currently the PDP bill which is pending in the Parliament plays a comprehensive role with regard to data protection and which is applicable for artificial intelligence technology also. What are these important salient features of this law, that is PDP law? Here, the user should have a control over the data. That means the human subjects should have a control over the data. End users must be explicitly explained how the data will be utilized, what are the safeguards which are there for the protection of the privacy. And whenever you want to collect the data from the patient, informed consent must be taken. And also, how algorithms is written and how it will work also need to be explained reasonably to the patient. With regard to biometric data, we need to have additional security features to be added. Further, impact assessment should be carried out by the relevant authorities after deploying the AI. Although AI is deployed, it can write its own algorithms. That means it will self-correct. It may write a new codes. Hence, one need to monitor that carefully. Further, the people who are involved in the development of AI are responsible for anonymizing the data, preventing the re-identification of the dataset, and prevention of leakage of data. These are important terminology, my dear friends. If you have collected the data, you need to remove the identifiers. That means anonymizing the data. That is very essential. Once, if you have removed the identifying data or the demographic data, by no means you can re-identify. That prevention of re-identifying the data should be also prevented. Further, leakage of the data also is an important concept, and we need to make sure the data doesn't falls into the wrong hand. It is unethical to repurpose the data surplus without the proper consent of the patient. For example, if you are doing a research and you are collecting for 300 patients and you get more than the 300 patient, you may get maybe 600. In such a scenario, you are not going to misuse the data. The data what you have got and what is the objective of the study need to be the important consideration. If you are going to deviate from the protocol, you need to take the amendment from the ethics committee. Not only that, you have to take the consent from each of the every participant. Yes, we are going to use the data for further analysis. That kind of consent has to be taken. Now let's move into accountability and liability. As you know, AI technology means they are independent like human being. Can they override the patient's consent is a big question. And if something goes wrong, who will be held responsible? Hence, there is a need for regular internal and external audit with regard to AI and how they are optimally functioning. Healthcare sector at all stages of development, deployment, AI-based tools and technologies need to be watched closely. AI for health should always be appropriately supervised and periodically monitored. Open source software must also follow the best ethical practice. You can't just say that I'm giving a free of cost AI and use it, and you can't have a flawed system in that. Hence, the concept of human in the loop plays an important role, and they need to play as a supervisory role with regard to AI application on human beings. Hence, adoption of this human in the loop plays a very crucial role when you are deploying an AI for healthcare services. And anything goes wrong with regard to the deployment, the people who are involved as a healthcare services or a human in the loop will be held responsible. And if there is a problem in the algorithm creators, they will be held responsible. Hence, my dear friends, the accountability and liability stays with every stakeholders involved in the development, creation, deployment, and adoption of AI in healthcare services. That means, my dear friends, it's a huge responsibility not only on the healthcare professionals, but also on the people who are developing AI. During the deployment of AI technology based tools, the legal responsibility of its usage needs to be well defined and needs to be adopted into clinical or for the public usage has to be clearly defined. If the malfunctioning is primarily due to the flaws in functionality, then the people who are developer will be held responsible. If it is during the implementation stage or during the decision of whether to implement or not, if the healthcare professional are involved, then they will be held responsible, my dear friends. Moving to the optimization of data quality. As I mentioned earlier, the AI is as good as the data. If you have a very good data, huge data, then you are going to get a robust AI technology. If you have a bad data, you are going to get a bad AI technology. Hence, AI is considered as data-driven technology, my dear friends. Hence, there need to be a due diligence need to be necessary to ensure the training of the data is free from all biases, discrimination, and it should be representation of all section of the population, my dear friends. If there is any pre-existing prejudice that arises in AI models need to be retrained or else the AI need to be squashed, my dear friends. Poor data quality inappropriate data, inadequate data representation may lead to various biases, discrimination, error, stigma, suboptimal functioning, and wrong decision making. Hence, we need to minimize the data. How to do that? Before deploying AI technology, they should be tested. They needs to be considered, identified, and thoroughly scrutinized before deploying it. Data sets used in AI technology should be representative of all the population. It cannot be only on the lower socioeconomic status, and the people from the higher economic status are not considered for it at all. It should be the representation of general population. And here I need to demonstrate it is free from all biases of technology and it is optimally functioning without any much risk involved. The manufacturer has the responsibility to eliminate the biases, my dear friend, and also make sure that the stigma and discrimination does not happens to the patients. If these inherent problems are related to data can be minimized by a rigorous clinical validation before AI-based technology is adopted is the best at this point of time. Hence, AI must pass through a well-established process of scrutiny applicable to any research and clinical research involving human subjects. Let's move to the important seventh principle, accessibility, equity, and inclusiveness. As you know, there is a digital divide in India. There are people who have access to the fiber net or else a strong strength of internet is available, which is fiber optics. And there are population who do not have access even to the internet, my dear friends. That means there is a digital divide. Hence, this AI technology should not further enhance this divide. This AI should minimize the accessibility differences, equity differences, and inclusiveness. Hence, to reduce this, the bias associated with AI technology should employ people from different categories, strata of the society, and cultural background, religion, and language, my dear friends. And after the deployment, AI technology should be available to all the population, not only for the substrata of population. The user interface of AI technology may enable the multiple language settings so that it can be used across various language speaking, my dear friends. That means in India, we have many languages. You cannot develop just a AI language in English or Hindi. You need to develop in all languages, my dear friends. The next is important is ethics regard collaboration. Collaboration between AI researcher and health professional is a mandatory at this point of time when you are developing an AI for healthcare research or healthcare services. The motivation for collaborations and potential conflict of interest should be explicitly stated so that the people who are participating in the trial knows what is the conflict of interest of the researcher. Data sharing for any national or international collaboration should be discussed. Safeguarding of privacy should be the prime, and security and critical issues need to be discussed before in hand, my dear friends. All international collaboration or assistance related to biomedical and health research with regard to data collection, sharing of biological materials, and intellectual property must be submitted to Health Ministry Screening Committee, that is called as HMSC, that is Health Ministry's Screening Committee for approval before initiation of such trial. Ninth one is non-discrimination and fairness principle. Special attention should be given to underrepresented and vulnerable population, which I have mentioned many times. AI developers should promote the active inclusion of women and the minority groups in the society. Developers should give special attention to promotion and protecting of equality of the individuals. Freedom, rights, and dignity should be treated with equality and justice for even gender minority and sexual minority people. AI technology should be designed for universal usage, my dear friends. Discrimination on any basis should be avoided at any cost. In case of unfortunate event arises from the malfunctioning of AI technology occurs, then there should be an appropriate readdressal mechanism for the victims. The manufacturer should ensure that there is a provision for proper grievance readdressal, my dear friends. There must be a safe mechanism to raise concern pertaining to the AI technology, and those issues can be technical, functional, ethical, or misuse of technology. There should be a proper mechanisms for protecting the whistleblowers who talk about, yes, this AI is causing harm. And finally, the validity with regard to ethics principle. AI technology in healthcare must undergo rigorous clinical and field validation before it is applied in patients. There has to be an internal mechanism to monitor any faulty algorithms and convey appropriate feedback to the developers so that algorithms are corrected as and when required. Moving to the second section 2, that is guiding principles of various stakeholders involved in development, validation, and deployment of AI. First, 2.1 guiding principle for development phase. When if you are developing an AI, what is the guiding principle? First and the foremost, the input should be taken from all the stakeholders, including the healthcare professionals and the patients. The purpose and end goals of the data collection should be known to all stakeholders before you start the experiment. Data should include persons from wide range of geographical and representing population from different geographical strata. Time limitation with regard to storage of the protected data need to be clearly mentioned. How the data will be utilized should be mentioned. And if there is a surplus data, how you are going to utilize it and how it will be discarded or destroyed should be clearly mentioned in informed consent. And if you are going to use it for any other purpose, you need to take ethics committee approval and also informed consent from all the participants. The user must have a right to exercise, right to be forgotten. That means if I have given a consent to be part of AI based research and somewhere in the middle of the research I feel I should withdraw, right to be forgotten. That means they need to remove the complete data from the data set, which is involving my consent, and if I refused, my data should be clearly removed. That is exercise to right to be forgotten, and informed consent is a must. Highest standard of data security and privacy should be maintained, and policy for protection should be in place. Feedback to end users vis-a-vis to the developers is very essential. That means you need to see what is the feedback by the user. At the same time, that feedback has to be reaching the developers. The relevant stakeholders should be made liable to pay compensation if anything goes wrong with the patients. 2.2 guiding principle for validation phase. To validate AI-based solution with regard to claimed performance when deployed in the real world should be done carefully. We need to verify the clinical accuracy from the AI-based solution is important. Efficacy of the AI-based algorithm should be compared to gold standard available treatment at this point of time. Validation should be preferably done prospectively. Don't use retrospective data because retrospective data may be poor in quality. An assessment of any potential risk to the healthcare provider and to the recipient of the care should be clearly evaluated. Hence, Spirit AI and Consorts AI may be used as a framework for designing and running an assessment related to trials from AI, my dear friends. Appropriate and updated analytical should be applied for validation studies, which are such as UAC, CROC, and sensitivity, specificity, F1 score, Matthews correlation coefficient should be tested, my dear friends. Moving to the chapter 2.3, that is guiding principle for clinical and other health-related deployment. Deployment of AI technology is the last and the most important step in the journey of any healthcare services when you are doing a research. Proper training should be provided to the healthcare provider who are going to use the AI technology, my dear friends. Health professionals should be aware as how the data collected from the participants will be used, stored, secured, and ensured for privacy. Prior to deployment, healthcare professionals should have a fair idea how this AI is going to function, what are the bases, if there are any discrimination and biases need to be told. Health professionals using AI-based solution for biomedical research and also for the clinical and public health settings may be responsible and they are accountable for consequences arising out of the AI solution, my dear friends. If there is any adverse event and injury occurs, they need to be compensated and the manufacturers should be held responsible for that. The onus of providing the compensation lies with all the stakeholders, my dear friends. During the deployment, hence, human in the loop is an important concept which ICMR says if you are using AI technology for providing healthcare services, there should be a healthcare professionals between AI and the patient. Human oversight and manual override of mechanism must be compulsory for AI. Imagine if AI is writing this own algorithm and you cannot stop it. Hence, from the beginning, you need to have overriding mechanism to stop this AI. There should be an inbuilt mechanism of switching over to alternative mode of healthcare provision when AI is not beneficial to certain people. Moving to the section 3, which talks about ethical review procedures with regard to medical artificial intelligence. There should be an ethics committee in every institution which following the ICMR guidelines of 2017. Hence, this ethics committee is responsible for assessing both the scientific rigor, ethical rigor, and the aspect of healthcare research. And they should ensure that the proposal is scientifically sound and ethically valid, and also weigh all possible potential risks involved, and the benefits of the population need to be clearly mentioned, and the implementation of this research should be justified. Hence, ICMR National Ethics Guidelines for Biomedical Research involving human participant 2017 guidelines need to be followed in spirit. Subject experts may also be invited for the ethics committee discussion whether we need to allow for such kind of research. And ethics committee people who are involved in AI should be trained in artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, IoT needs to be discussed, and they should know about the basics. EC members shall review the proposal, scientific temperament, ethical issues, site visit, protocol review, monitoring, compensation, and look for adverse events. Moving to section 4, that is informed consent. Before you do any kind of research involving AI or else involving human beings, you need to take informed consent. Before you take informed consent, you have to provide relevant information with regard to AI and also with regard to whether the person is competent or not to take decision, ensuring that information is easily understood by the participant, and ensuring the voluntariness of the participant is essential. The researchers must make sure that research participant understand the alternative available also. The researchers must ensure that the patient has understood the process and must evaluate the research subject on teach back and show me. That means you have given information to the patient with regard to AI. You need to ask him, what did you understand? Tell me whatever I have told you now, so that teach back or show me should be the technique which should be used. Sometimes waiver of consent can be applied. The researchers may apply for the EC for waiver of consent if the research involves less than a minimal risk to the participants, or as per the National Ethical Guidelines of Biomedical and Health Research 2017 need to be applicable. Moving to the last part of my presentation. Governance of AI technology use for healthcare and research. The regulation of AI technology in healthcare is still in the nascent process. There are no hardcore laws. At this point of time, there are policies and guidelines. Hence, the National Health Policy 2017 focused on leveraging digital technology to provide healthcare to the last person in the last village, in the last mile. With regard to this, National Digital Health Blueprint 2019 came up with a solid blueprint with regard to application of digital technology in healthcare. And they talked about a system of electronic health record based on international standard should be made available for data anonymization and a de-identification process. Further, the Digital Information Security Healthcare Act, which was introduced but which was withdrawn later. Further, the Act should intend to provide a establishment of national and state e-health authority from the Disha was proposed, but it has been withdrawn now. And these were the authorities which were proposed at that time. However, we need to follow Medical Device Rules 2017 and its amendment in 2020. Even if you are using AI technology, all healthcare related legislation need to be followed. And something goes wrong, the person who is responsible for maintaining the algorithm, writing the algorithm, and also testing, deploying, and adoption. And there are 17 checklists for this ICMR research, my dear friends. What are those? Number one is with regard to objectives of the AI research on human participants. What is the technology used here? What is the funding and conflict of interest by the researcher? What are the credentials of the researchers? The type of participants, whether they're healthy volunteers or vulnerable section of the population, how the participants are recruited, what is the methodology adopted, risks involved in application of AI in providing services, treatment related research injuries need to be thought of, potential benefits of AI, What is the evidence with regard to application of AI on large population before the deployment, validation of the AI services, and accountability if something goes wrong. Hence, monitoring should be the rock bed at the same time, a must need to monitor these AI who can write their own algorithms. How the data is collected, stored, shared, and accessed need to be clearly mentioned. Informed consent, right to be forgotten, and human in the loop are the important ingredients of application of AI in biomedical and health research, my dear friends. To conclude, AI technology regulation is a very nascent and there are no laws at this point of time. Although there are laws with regard to Information Technology 2000, which was not drafted for this purpose. Artificial intelligence is growing every day, but the law is not growing. We have a old law till now, that is Indian Penal Code, which was drafted by the Britishers, my dear friends. Hence, there is a need for the AI-based legislation, guidelines to be evolved along the line of development of this technology. Hence, there is a need for human in the loop when AI technology is deployed for healthcare services. And if there is anything goes wrong, accountability has to be fixed and the victim needs to be compensated. And every person involved in the development, creation of AI, deployment of the AI, and also phase 4 trial, that is, during the deployment or after the deployment, what are the hazards on the human beings need to be assessed and properly compensated, my dear friends. This is what application of AI in biomedical and health research involving human subjects, my dear friends. Thank you very much for giving your valuable time. Stay safe.